there are some very interesting polls, how that when you've got battles for both Hispanic and Latino voters as well as black voters. So I want to go back to 2020 when Joe Biden was on the ticket. He got 59% of the Latino vote, 92% of the black vote. Right now in 2024, Harris is only at 38% of the Latino vote. So that's a 21% difference in where Joe Biden was. This was campaigning from the basement. And on the black vote, where you'd think, okay, Harris, who kind of re-energized the black vote, supposedly put places like Georgia in, not just into play, but like probably into the category for Democrats we heard early on. It's just not coming along that way. So, for instance, Joe Biden got 92% of the black vote. Harris, 72%. 20-point differences both among the Latino and black vote. Even the Arab American vote. This is why there's a protest today in Minnesota at the University of Minnesota where pro-Palestinian protesters have taken over one of the student buildings at the University of Minnesota. So that is going on and happening. But I think what's interesting there is that even there, the identity group politics of the black vote, the Latino vote, even the Arab American vote, it's not just about, they're the ones that are more questioning Israel, so we're going to go with Democrats because they are the ones saying that Israel has committed and killed way too many people in the Gaza Strip, so maybe it'll be a better choice for us. And yet, we're not seeing that. We might see that amongst the Palestinian American vote, but not the Arab American vote. And we're starting to see the same thing happen, even in bigger numbers, amongst the black vote and Latino vote.
That's right, Jordan. And the Democrat Party for a long time has played identity politics as kind of their entire strategy. They separate people into groups based off of racial demographics, geolocation, things of that nature, and say, these are a given for us, so then we have to just go after kind of these top line numbers, and that's how we win. But what we're seeing is finally, hopefully, a crumbling of their strategy of playing identity politics to win elections. Because when you're seeing 20% drops from the incumbent president's poll numbers back in 2020 to what now the incumbent vice president as the lead ticket, when you see this deterioration by 20 points or more, it really calls into question, is the Democrat strategy of playing racial identity politics finally coming to an end? Because when you start telling people you have to vote this way because of your demographic categories, whether it be race, location, age, people start to eventually get fed up with that and say, we are people, we are Americans, and we're going to vote for what's the best choice for us, not just because you're telling me because I'm a Latino voter, I have to vote this way. And these poll numbers are showing a fracture in the Democratic stronghold of playing identity politics. And hopefully that era is coming to an end. A recent poll from YouGov found that Trump is leading Kamala Harris 45% to 43% among Arab Americans. You've seen in Michigan, a Yemeni American business owner that came out, he's a restaurant owner, a very popular restaurant, that came out in support and did a video for Donald Trump. Rick Grinnell said he even met with that restaurant owner while he was in Michigan. You're seeing things like the leader of that city that has the first majority Arab American city council in history. The mayor of that town came out and endorsed President Trump. And these are areas that, based off the way that we've been told by the media, by the Harris campaign, by the Biden administration, that Arab Americans are going to reject anyone that is fully endorsing Israel, standing behind our strongest ally in the Middle East, because and it's going to backfire for anyone that stands that way on American values and principles in the election. But it seems that they misplayed their hand there. They catered to the radicals and the terrorist supporters that support Hamas on college campuses for over a year. And now what we're seeing is that that's not translating to the people that are voting. It doesn't translate to the Ivy League educated teenagers and early 20-year-olds that may or may not show up to vote, but it is not translating 100% to the communities when they are looked at as a voting bloc and not as Americans, not as people who will vote the best decision for their family, for their business. And I'm shocked at some of these polls because of what the media and Democrat strategists and politicians have told us for years and years. But the reality is, when you're looking at this, you're starting to see a fracture in the strategy that Democrats have used for decades. There will be a lot of stories in history books about this election. There's been 2 assassination attempts. There's been a coup within one party to replace their nominee. But I think one of the stories that is just bubbling up that I think will be written about is the failure of the media, and this kind of being the worst moment, kind of the end of legacy media's full impact. Even though we've gone through the pandemic years, the 2016 election, all of those things, I think, pale in comparison. And one of the worst symptoms I think I'm seeing of that right now is surrounded around this McDonald's story, as well as President Trump going to the Steelers game. The legacy media is having to now tell us, they think that we need to know President Trump wasn't actually an employee this weekend at McDonald's. There are multiple legacy media that are making sure that's reiterated. He was not an employee because Americans are too dumb, apparently, to figure that out, as well as Newsweek tweeting out that President Trump, in a likely AI-generated image, was shared from his Truth Social account of him in a Steelers uniform. Because once again, the American people can't be trusted to know that President Trump didn't suit up and go play football on Monday at the Steelers game he just attended. I think this is the worst symptom of it, that the media as we know it is dead. And we're just kind of living in this afterglow period where they still exist, but not really.
You remember the scene in Hunger Games when the Capitol, the Capitol, which was a symbol of Washington, D.C., clearly, was completely surrounded by media and doing their own thing and believing their stories. And then everybody else out in the rest of the country were laughing at them and watching that, they had this spectacle circus going on. That's exactly what's happening in Washington, D.C. They all don't know in the newsrooms of Washington, D.C. that the rest of America are laughing at them. They have no credibility. They sit in their little newsrooms and believe each other, and they don't think that we've noticed that they're not going after the McDonald's story, or they're literally covering up everything for Kamala and Joe, and they're attacking Donald Trump nonstop. Look, CNN is unwatchable. It's literally unwatchable when you just go through segment after segment is all Democrats and Trump haters. Once in a while, they'll put in like a rhino in there to talk. But it's really atrocious. And I think that we're going to have a come to Jesus. We're going to have to recognize that when you have propaganda media regurgitating the message points of the ruling party, that's an element of fascism. First and second generation Americans see this clearly. They left that, and now they're experiencing it here in America.